Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be talking all about habits today.
Habits.
From this podcast episode called The Power of Habits, How Small Changes Lead to Big Success.
Okay.
So we're gonna look at how they work, how to use them to reach goals, and really dive deep into all the information.
Cool.
And
yeah, I find it fascinating how much we just kind of operate on autopilot, you know?
Yeah. And they actually mentioned in this episode that something like 40% of our daily actions are just habit-driven.
Wow.
That's almost half the day.
Yeah.
So if we can harness that,
Yeah.
that's a lot of power.
Imagine the potential there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that they talked about is this thing called the habit loop.
Right.
And it's broken down into cue,
Yeah.
routine, and reward.
I see.
So can you kind of walk us through what that looks like in a real example?
Yeah. So let's say you get stressed at work. That's the cue, right? You're feeling stressed.
Right.
So then the routine is what you do in response to that stress, right? So maybe you reach for a bag of chips.
Right.
And the reward is that temporary relief from the stress, right?
Okay, so the chips are
The chips are part of the routine. Yeah, that leads to the reward.
Okay.
Which is that feeling of comfort.
Okay.
But here's the cool thing. Once you understand this loop, you can actually start to break free from it, right? So instead of reaching for chips, what if your routine was going for a 5-minute walk?
Okay, so you're changing the response to the...
Exactly. You're changing that routine to something that's more beneficial.
I like that, yeah.
And you know what? This kind of ties into this idea of compound growth.
Oh, this is the part I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about even just a 1% improvement per day leads to massive results.
It's pretty amazing.
But how does that work?
So think about it like this. Let's say you want to read more, right? Mm-hmm. If you just commit to reading 1 page a day.
1 page.
1 page.
Yeah.
It might not seem like much.
Right.
But after a year, you've read 365 pages.
Yeah.
That's a whole book.
Wow.
And that's just with one tiny habit, you know?
Right.
Imagine applying that to other areas. Working out, learning a new language, anything.
So it's not about these big drastic changes. It's really about
It's about consistency over time.
Yeah, the consistency.
Small steps compounded over time.
So why is starting small so important?
Well, our brains are wired to resist change, right?
Right.
So when we try to do too much too soon, it kind of overwhelms us. Mm-hmm. It overwhelms our neurological pathways. Okay. So by starting small, we're easing into those new patterns.
So it's kind of like tricking your brain.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Into making these little...
Making it manageable.
Changes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say I have a habit in mind that I want to build. What are some strategies to make sure that I stick with it?
Okay, so one technique is called habit stacking.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't really know.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it's basically you link a new habit to an existing one.
Okay.
Let's say you already make coffee every morning.
Right.
You could use that as a trigger to practice gratitude for a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're attaching the new habit to something you already do consistently.
So you're not creating a whole new routine.
Exactly.
You're just adding on to
piggybacks.
that existing one.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about accountability?
Accountability is huge.
They talked about that.
Yeah, it's like having a cheerleader in your corner.
Right.
Someone to support you, keep you motivated.
Okay.
You know, sharing your goals with a friend or joining a group can make a big difference.
So it's like an extra push.
Yeah, that external motivation.
When you're not.
When you need it.
Feeling it.
Exactly.
So what about breaking bad habits?
That's the tough one, right?
Yeah, those are really hard.
But there are strategies.
Okay.
One approach is to increase the difficulty of that bad habit.
So how do you do that?
So let's say you're trying to reduce social media scrolling.
Right.
You could make it more difficult by moving your phone to another room.
Okay.
Or disabling notifications.
So basically...
Make it harder to access.
The harder it is, the less likely you are to do it.
Exactly.
Oh.
Out of sight, out of mind.
I like that.
And then there's this other technique called temptation bundling.
What is temptation bundling?
It's a fun one.
Okay.
It's basically pairing an activity you want to do with something you need to do.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say you want to watch your favorite show.
Right.
But you also need to exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
You only allow yourself to watch that show while you're on the treadmill.
Oh, okay. So
you're basically,
golf.
Yeah, you're using the thing you want to do
doing
as a leverage. Exactly.
It's not work.
It's pretty clever.
Yeah, okay.
And it really works.
So they only mentioned some examples in here. They have
Right.
some people that have been really successful with habits.
Yep.
Like Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah, yeah, she's big on gratitude.
Right.
She credits a lot of her success to her gratitude practice.
And Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
He has a really
Structured.
structured morning routine.
Yeah, 8 hours of sleep.
Like he really makes sure he gets his 8 hours.
No matter what.
So it's cool to see that even these really successful people
Yeah.
are using these principles.
It's not magic.
Yeah.
It's just consistency.
It's amazing how these small actions can really add up to something.
Yeah, it's really inspiring.
Pretty incredible.
It is. Yeah, it really is like almost like a hidden superpower that everyone has.
Yeah, and it makes me think, if we neglect it, could it actually work against us?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind.
Right.
Even if you're not actively doing bad habits,
Yeah.
just the absence of good habits can lead to stagnation.
So it's not enough to just stop the bad.
Right.
You really have to replace it.
Exactly. You have to actively cultivate the positive ones to really thrive.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And, the nice thing is that a lot of these small changes are actually manageable.
Right.
It's not like this huge, overwhelming...
It's not like you have to change your whole life overnight.
Yeah, exactly. It's not sustainable.
It's really about integrating it into
Yeah.
your existing routine.
The wall piece, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So they mentioned a few specific strategies in here for building good habits.
Mm-hmm.
One that really stood out was making it as easy as possible.
Oh, yeah. Make it easy.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So one of the biggest obstacles to forming a habit is friction.
Like, what do you mean by friction?
Just any little barrier, even something small,
Oh,
like having to go find your workout clothes.
right.
That can derail you.
It's like, I don't feel like doing that.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
Later.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is to remove as many of those barriers as possible.
So really setting yourself up for success
Yes. Set yourself up.
before you even start.
Exactly.
Okay, and then we talked a little bit before about habit stacking.
Yeah. Habit stacking.
Do you have any other examples of how that could work?
Yeah. Let's say you want to meditate,
Okay.
but you're having trouble finding the time.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
You could habit stack that by maybe adding a 5-minute meditation session after you brush your teeth in the morning.
So it's just adding on to something you already do.
Yeah, it's a natural extension of something you're already doing consistently
Yeah.
every day.
Okay, so what about those times when we slip up?
It happens.
Because let's be real, nobody's perfect.
It's part of the process.
Right, so how do we handle those setbacks?
Well, I think the key is to not let the setbacks derail your entire progress.
It's so easy to just be like, oh, well,
Oh, yeah. And
so
that's
I'm
how
going to give up.
I'm a failure, yeah.
Yeah,
But instead of seeing it as a failure, see it as a learning experience.
okay,
What can you learn from it?
right.
How can you adjust maybe your approach?
So being kind to yourself
Yeah, be kind to yourself.
through the process.
It's about progress,
Yeah.
not perfection.
I like that. They said that a lot in the episode, too.
Yeah, small, consistent steps lead to big wins.
Yeah, so it's really about working with our brains,
Mm.
not against them.
Yeah, use the science of behavior change to your advantage.
Okay, one last question on building good habits.
Okay.
They also mentioned celebrating small wins.
Yes, celebrate.
Why is that important?
Our brains love rewards
Okay.
when we acknowledge and appreciate our progress.
Even the small?
Even the tiny ones, yeah.
Yeah.
It releases dopamine,
Yeah.
makes us feel good, motivates us to keep going.
So even if it's just a small step forward?
Acknowledge it, appreciate it,
Yeah.
celebrate it. It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Right.
You could journal about it. You could share it with a friend.
Okay.
Just take a moment to really appreciate your own efforts.
I like that. That's really good.
Yeah.
That makes me feel like I can actually do this.
You can. Yeah. It really is a different way to think about self-improvement.
And speaking of self-improvement,
Yeah.
one thing I found interesting in the episode was how they linked habits with identity.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Our habits really are a reflection of who we believe we are.
It's like if you think of yourself as someone who's not a morning person,
Right, exactly.
then you're never going to be able to get up early.
Yeah, you're going to act in ways that reinforce that belief.
Right. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is
Yeah.
we can change that.
We
Yeah.
can. Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, instead of saying, I'm not a morning person,
Right.
you start saying, I'm becoming someone who enjoys waking up early
Okay.
and having a productive morning.
So you're basically changing your self-talk
Yeah, you're changing your beliefs about yourself.
to match the action.
Exactly. And then your actions will start to align with those beliefs.
Okay, so that's a powerful shift.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, what else is on your mind?
is there anything else in the episode
Oh, let me think.
that really resonated with you?
Well, they talked about the role of environment.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, like our surroundings can actually either help or hurt our habits.
I can see that.
Like if your kitchen counters are covered in junk food,
I'm going to eat it.
yeah, you're more likely to snack on it.
Absolutely.
But if you have like fresh fruits and veggies readily available,
then I'm going to reach for those instead.
You're more likely to make those healthy choices.
So it's really about designing your environment.
It's like you're setting yourself up again for success.
Exactly.
By
choice architecture.
changing your environment.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about, I guess to wrap up this deep dive, I'd like to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay, I love questions.
Something to think about.
Yeah, shoot.
So we talked about how our current habits shape us.
Mm-hmm.
But if we could travel into the future and meet our future selves,
I like this.
what habits would we be proud of?
Oh, wow.
That we built?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about your values. What's important to you.
Yeah.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Yeah. And it really emphasizes that we have the power to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We can choose who we become.
This was a really great conversation.
It was fun.
I learned a lot.
Me too.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in.
Keep learning.
You have the power to change.
You do.
So get out there and start building those good habits.
One step at a time.
We'll see you next time.